Welcome back to another Reading and Correcting with me, Kindar, the Tiger Writes, and I, the Tiger Supervisor. These are where I read a chapter from one of my stories and correct it as I go. If you want to listen to these live, it's every Tuesday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern Time on Twitch and YouTube. And if you are looking to support me, that is on my Patreon. Today, I am doing chapter 35 Redux of the Technician's Fight. Jeremy regained consciousness to the realization he was tied to a chair and how ridiculous that was. Kelsirian seats weren't designed to tie someone to them. Someone could be imprisoned in one, you thought, with something covering the open front, but tying? That was. He jerked straight, pulling on his arm, and then held pulling his arm to no effect. Jeremy! Someone exclaimed. I knew this would work. The male spoke Earther. He forced himself to settle down. Panicking wouldn't get him out of this. He ignored the thin Earther in the lab coat in favor of the room, a medical room with half a dozen beds, two desks, each with an uncomfortable-looking assistant. Two guards stood on each side of the door, and a corner made up as an office, in front of which stood the male who spoke. He'd addressed him with a shortened version of his name. Who'd addressed him with a shortened version of his name? Jeremy studied him. The thinness didn't seem healthy, and the light brown skin had an ashenness to it. The curly brown hair was flattered, and he remembered, and he realized who this was and almost spurted out the name. Jeremy wouldn't honor him with any short version of it. Dr. Omar Sewan. That's Sewan. He greeted him, trying to make the words flat. Co-scriptors pointed out that this may very well be the first time that Omar's full name is used in two books. When did you get so formal, Jeremy? Don't call me that. You haven't earned the right. You may address me as Hunter Jeremy Bradshaw. The male said at him. Wow, did they do a number on you? But don't worry, you're safe now, and these two will make sure you remain so. Safe from who? Right. The Earther had convinced himself Jeremy had been taken against his will. He wanted to ask about his pack. His last clear memory was of them fighting, but he didn't want to reveal he was worried. What happened to you? He asked, feeling for his restraint and realized he still had his gloves on. Knowing he hadn't been declawed made him feel better. You don't look well. What? You think that after the cat stole you and destroyed the technology I'd been lent, I'd be lathered with food and riches? They wouldn't even let me back onto the ship. I was too much of a risk. They said. Making my way here was a bitch. Had to stow away on a ship that was going to a station where I knew. I keep doing that, going no instead of new. Where I knew people came here, and because I couldn't be detected, it meant I could barely print myself anything to eat and drink. Otherwise, power use would be noticed. And what? You didn't look after your health once you got here? A claw against the material, holding his wrist together, left an indentation, so he could cut it. He just had to be careful he didn't draw attention. You make it sound like I'm in charge here. If I didn't have medical skills to bother, I'm pretty sure they would have spaced me when I showed up. The bastard didn't even know who I was. Can you believe that? I was in close with the people in charge before you went and got stolen a second time. Close? There was no way the male had been close with anyone running things. He'd been nothing more than a doctor on a research station, making sure Jeremy didn't break the programming. It didn't break his programming, and realized he was attracted to males. He certainly hadn't been important enough by then to warrant a watcher who'd be close to people in charge. He'd only been one of 3 antimatter engineers there, and not the best of them. Within Earther territory, he'd been one of hundreds he expected. Although he knew he was among the best in that group, it was what had gotten him noticed by Dr. Manuel. How had this male managed to delude himself into thinking either of them were that important? That didn't matter. He was on a hunt, and even in this situation, he could aim to gain information while he freed himself. Where are they? The Earther stared at him. Who? The tone implied he couldn't understand why Jimmy would ask after anyone. The people who were kidnapped off the merchant ship. I doubt it's a coincidence you're here when this is... You're here when this is where they were taken. I doubt... Spoken of the merchant ship. That works. I doubt it's a coincidence you're here when this is where they were taken. So how about you tell me where you're hiding them and why you had them kidnapped? Confusion, then understanding. Oh, the bait, he giggled. That was clever, wasn't it? See, I knew the cats wouldn't be able to let any one of theirs be taken like that. So I convinced friends I made to attack them. So I convinced some people here to attack them. That was after I had them retrieve those. That'll be those for me. He motioned to the desk and the 3 items on it. Jeremy had to fight against reacting when he recognized one of the torture devices from his one as the torture device from his last encounter with that male. Okay, I'm gonna have to be a little more specific here because that version was a full chair. The helmet. As the helmet from the torture device from his last encounter with that male. I also knew they'd have to bring you, since the cats aren't clever enough to understand art tech. Of course, when I told those in charge here that I was bringing them the feared Kelsirian hunter, it's not like they were happy to have a chance to destroy him, but they'll do it anyway, now that your kidnappers are here. A red light flashed along with a klaxon. This is not a drill. I repeat, this is not a drill. All personnel need to be ready to go to their assigned escape pod. All crew to their ship. There's a Kelsirian ship somewhere. Somewhere out there. If they report our location, it's prison for all of us, no matter who finds us. We're activating that. Finally, the male said, flicking the sound off. I told them it was... Oh, okay. I told them the ship was out there as soon as the guards in Security Central I'd paid to look for you reported you were here on the dock. You were on the docks, he frowned. Although, I guess it's a good thing they didn't sound the alarm then. That would have sent you running back to them the way they trained you, wouldn't it? He looked at the guards. What happened to those who were with him? Did they run off with their tails between their legs? He giggled again. The female shrugged. Probably dead by now. Yes, you're free. You never have to be afraid of they'll take you again. Like, that's what I'm afraid of. He resisted the urge to claw his restraint harder. There was nothing he could do for the Bane, and Graal was an alpha of the line. He'd be able to deal with the 20 or so ship at the station. He was making progress toward freeing himself. That had to be enough. What's that supposed to mean? The Earther demanded. It means that I've never been afraid of them. Liar. You were terrified of them. I made sure of it. I don't know how they undid that, but they won't turn you against me a second time. He motioned to the desk again. and Jeremy actively did not look there. Turns out they hadn't lent me the best version of the machine. Can you believe it? Me, who promised them I'd bring back their errant engineer if they help. Didn't even give me the best tech to work with. I swear, there's no working with a corpse. They never do more than the bare minimum. Where are they? Jeremy demanded, and when Omar turned to the desk, the male faced him again, looking confused. Who? Jeremy forced his teeth apart. The people you kidnapped. Confusion still, then understanding. Oh, the bait. I don't know. It's not like I have a need for them. You're the only one who matters to me. If I had to guess, they've been turned into rugs by now. Was that possible? The level of alarm at the Bane's presence spoke of worse thing happening here than the Black Station. Even it being within disputed territory wasn't enough to warrant. Was it possible? Add, because Xenial does bring that up. Been right? Xenial been right? The level of alarm at the Bane's presence spoke of worse things happening here than a black station. Even it being within disputed territories wasn't enough to warrant something as drastic as attacking a hunter ship. Graal had told him as much as black stations were a problem, no one actively tried to shut them down. They were places to get a sense of what the Halans were up to. Raiding the occasional one was needed so they wouldn't think they could do whatever they wanted, but they were allowed to return to operation afterward. Jeremy gritted his teeth. Omar? The restraints were nearly all cut. Damn it, Omar, look at me, he demanded when the male reached for the sleeker of the devices on the chest. The male turned, smirking. Oh, what happened to all that formality, Jeremy? Forced aside to keep him from reacting to his shortened name. What's this about, Omar? I mean, really about. If you aren't working for the Earther government anymore, why do all this? They're the ones who wanted me back before me being with Al made people back there realize the sickness is a lie. The male crouched before him. Why? Because you're my friend, Jeremy. He took Jeremy's head in both hands. You're the best friend I ever had. I could never leave you with those perverted monsters. When they wouldn't work with me anymore, I realized the corps had decided to wash their hands of you. They were going to let you suffer all the horrible things those animals were going to do to you. But you don't have to be afraid anymore, Jeremy. I'm going to keep you safe. I'm going to undo all the lies they put in your head about me, and we are going to be the best friends there's ever been. We are going to be tight. The smile the male gave him was filled with so much hope it was sickening. Omar, Jeremy said, forcing the restraints apart. Yes, Jeremy, he answered with the kind of tone Graal spoke to him after a night of lovemaking. Go fuck yourself. He punched the male in the face as hard as he could, and the Earther ended up sprawled on the floor, unmoving. As Jeremy cut the restraint holding his legs to the chair. He was up. You know what? That first one is about Omar. So this becomes about the fight, the setup and all that. So Jeremy cut the restraint holding his legs to the chair. He was up before the first guard reached him, and he kicked the chair in her direction, following it. He blocked, / deflected, neither to no effect, then landed a punch in her face in time to step away from the other guard as he tried to stab him with a boxy device. That had to be what they'd used to knock him out. The knowledge they intended to recapture him reminded him he was a hunter and they were the enemy. He unsheathed his claws. A hunter fought to live. A hunter would die, but when he stood before Turuk Samian, he would be able to proclaim he did not go easy. When the Earther tried to stab him again, Jeremy deflected it and slashed for the neck. The male moved back, and now the cuts were shallow, but he realized the stake had shifted. He dropped the device and went for the weapon at his hip. Jeremy tackled him, planting a knee in his groin. The protective cup kept him from doing serious damage, but the weight, when they landed on the floor, had the male's face contorting. He took the male's weapon, rolled off of him, aimed at the female, and nothing happened when he pressed the trigger. He threw it at her as she aimed hers and got to his feet while she was distracted and rushed. His armor took the shot, heating as it spread the plasma to prevent damage. He batted her hand away and slashed her throat open, grabbing... This is a fight. Let's make everything shorter. He grabbed her gun before shoving her away. Things are happening quickly, and that's something we can do with phrasing. Instill a sense of speed with short phrases and not wasting time. He grabbed her gun before shoving her away, turning and firing at the other guard running at him. His armor took the shot and they collided. The male landed 2 punches in Jeremy's face before he grabbed his throat. The male's expression turned to terror as the claw sank in. Then Jeremy ripped it out, falling back, uncaring about the blood flowing over his chest. "Oh, I don't think so," a male said by the time Jeremy had the buddy off of him, gun pointing at the open door. Danielle was slamming a second assistant against the wall for her to join the other female on the ground. The male smiled. Jeremy, you look like you're having fun." He stood. "Where are the others? Are they okay?" "They were when I left them." Jeremy froze. "You left my pack?" Danielle raised his hands. "It was with your beta's permission, I promise. When the alarm sounded, they had no choice but to shift priorities. They need to help the Bane first, but I'm not a hunter, so I wasn't under any such obligation." He grinned. "And it's not like we Alan are known for doing what we're told. So if your beta's smart, he'll tell you you're Alpha. I use the confusion to vanish, but the sense I get from him is that he'll tell him exactly what happened and accept his punishment. You hunters need to learn to hand the shit down the line so you aren't the one smelling like it when you're caught." "You done?" Jimmy demanded, not amused by a friend's opinions of his beta and also friend. "All done." "Restrain them." He cut Omar Sawan's coat into strips and used them to tie his arm behind his back. "We're coming back for them after the rest is dealt with." He headed for the desk and shuddered at the sight of that infernal device. "What are those?" Like the one that made me terrified of Growl. He looked through the cabinets. "What are you looking for?" "Something to carry them in. I'm not leaving those here for him to or someone else to find and take away. Fuck, I want to destroy them. But he said those were stolen, which means there are more out there. We need to study them and figure out how to undo the damage they can do." "Will this work?" Xenia held a bag. Jeremy couldn't figure out where he'd found until he realized the handle were sleeves tied together. He'd turned one of the lab coat into a bag, put the 3 devices in, and found a collar in the process. He checked his neck and found checked his neck. He wasn't wearing his. He almost went to the male to kick him for taking this off him. Put it on, then touched his ear and felt the earpiece in place. His tablet was still in his pocket, and he tapped his beta's name. "Beta, this is Hunter Jeremy reporting in." "The frequency's blocked," Xeniel said. "It happened not long after the alarm." told them I was on board. They're probably hoping this is going to keep us from warning the Bane of the coming attack. I'm not worried. I'm not either, but they don't know that. We should. Jeremy stopped and looked at his friend. If the frequency is blocked, how did you find me? Danielle smiled. I just walked around and counted on a lover to guide me to you. And that concludes the Redux chapter 35 of The Technician's Fight. If you are enjoying this, please leave a like. If you want to know when the next chapter will be up, subscribe and hit the bell. If you want to read this story as well as the other books, it is on Ream Story. If you are looking to listen to these live, it's every Tuesday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern Time on Twitch and YouTube. Links are in the notes, and with that, I shall wish you a good day.